Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from AlexMercedCoder.dev, and what this is going to be is an overview of what is a headless CMS, and also an overview of Contentful, which is an example of a headless CMS in 2023-2024. So basically it's December 2023, so it's really more of a 2024 video, but it is what it is. So first let's explain the concept of a headless CMS. Okay? And actually, in order to get there, we need to think sort of different architectural styles. So for example, no CMS. Okay, so let's say you have no CMS, which stands for a content management system. Okay, so basically you don't have this external system that's going to do things for you. What would happen? You would need to build a front end user interface. So this is how users interact with your application. Okay, but that front end user interface, you need to be able to get information on users, information on the user stuff, all these different kinds of things. So first you need a place to store that data. Okay, so you're going to need a database. And generally, it's not good practice to have your front end talk to your database directly, because generally any code that's running in your front end is exposed to the end user, because they can just go into your browser's developer tools and see all that code running. So in that case, they'd be able to kind of see your internal business logic, see how you access your database, lots of security concerns there. So generally what you rather do is create a layer, and plus you're doing everything hammer and chisel from the front end. And you want your front end developers to really be focused on user interface, user interactivity, the user experience, not on, manipulating data, reconstructing data, all this stuff. So typically what you do is you'll build a intermediate application, aka your backend application. And the backend application handles all the data work. So basically handles getting data from the database, sending data to the database, and then your front end, instead of talking to the database directly, talks to the backend and the front end, and through generally through either like an API. Okay, this could be a REST API, a GraphQL API, any kind of API. But the idea is that basically there is a way for your front end to send requests to the back end for the things that it needs, and then your back end through the database's API will talk to the database to help in fulfilling those requests. And essentially, you would have to build the backend and front end application and provision a database like a Postgres or a MySQL or something like that. Okay, this can be a lot of work and requires a lot of technical know-how. So in the past, what people have created is things that kind of encapsulate all of this. Okay, so basically, this system, okay, would basically create the front end user interface for you. It would manage the back end, okay, so provide you, and then also manage a database. Okay, so all sort of it is one abstracted layer. Okay, and this would be called the CMS. Okay, and probably the most famous CMS of all is WordPress. Okay, so if you ever use WordPress, you realize you probably didn't write any code whatsoever, but you were still able to manipulate your blogs, be able to add other users to be able to edit your blogs. So you're able to manipulate the data. You had this dashboard that you could log into as an administrator, so to do all that data work. So you had basically a user interface to manipulate the back end, and then your users, like people who were going to visit your blog, were able to go to your front end and have a good user experience that was kind of already handcrafted and designed for you. So in this case, basically the content management system crafted the user experience, gave you the admin privileges to kind of manage all the data, and manage how that kind of interacted with the database that would usually be like a MySQL database that was kind of behind the scenes. And this is all well and good. But over the years, when it comes to constructing user interfaces for like really complex applications, like think right now I'm using this thing called Excalidraw to draw this picture. Okay, to create applications like this, you're going to want to use really high intensive interactivity. So people started looking to frameworks like React, Angular, Vue, Quick, Solid, Svelte. I feel like I'm missing one. React, Angular, Vue, Quick, Solid, Svelte. Okay, I think it's a pretty good list. But start looking to frameworks like these to kind of help them construct their user interfaces. So they really didn't want they stopped like kind of, I mean, still people use WordPress more than anything. But a lot of people said like, I'd like to have that user interface where I can log in and manipulate my data in the back end without having to use any code. But I'd like to be able to create a custom front end. Like I'd still like to use one of these libraries to create like an application, okay, that has a lot more, bells and whistles, or has a little bit more flexibility than just what sort of a typical CMS like WordPress would give me, where you have to kind of work within the world of WordPress templates. Okay, so basically we said, hey, we want the head piece, like the piece that your UI, let us do that. Okay, and this created the world of a headless CMS. Okay, in this world of headless CMS, basically the idea is you have a place where you can work on the data, organize the data, construct your data models, and you don't have to know any code to do that. And then your front end, whoever your front end developers, can interact with that data via an API. Okay, and systems like this include Contentful. Actually, well, I'll just replace this list with that. So like systems that you would use for this include Contentful, which is what we're going to work with today, Builder.io, which is really cool, Agility CMS, Butter CMS, there's a lot of them, and several more. And those are all basically hosted services where basically you can just sign up online, and then, generally there's like a free tier, and then you would upgrade for better services. There's some that you can just deploy on your own. Like I think Prismic falls into this category. Prismic, Prisma, Hasura. Okay, these are all systems, and Hasura is also hosted, so that kind of goes both ways. But the idea is that these are things that you could use to kind of create the backend for you. So the idea is like the backend and in database stuff, all that. Basically, this piece you don't have to write the code for. You just focus on this piece. That's the concept with headless CMS. Now, is this great for all applications ever? No. But if generally you're dealing with your basic CRUD type functionality, being able to create, read, update, delete, and you don't really have too much in the way of very special, overly custom business logic that you have to handle, then these are great. These take a lot of the work and allow you to focus on the user experience. Okay, so that's what a headless CMS is. So let's actually just see one at work. Okay, so one example is Contentful. Okay, so it's been a while since I've used Contentful, so I'm gonna kind of relearn it with you. Okay, so let's get started. Go through the experience of just getting started. Okay, and basically I want to get started for free. So I'm gonna sign up. Okay, and I'm gonna sign up with a normal sign up. So I'm gonna say, hey, my name is Alex. I am myself. My email is going to be headless CMS 2023 at AlexMerced.com. Okay, and I'm other. Okay, and I'm going to put in a password, and chances are it's going to ask me for an email to confirm my email. So I am going to pause the video and just go through all of that, and then see you on the other side. Okay, so I've confirmed my email, all that stuff. So I'm here and starting a new account. It's asking me, do I want to start from a template? I'm not going to start from a template because I kind of want to show you exactly how this works. So I'm going to start from scratch. So I'm going to click right there. And it's basically setting up a space. So space is just essentially where I can create data, and then I can access data from that space via an API. Okay, so basically here we go, start creating and editing content, an interactive demo. Okay, so basically if we take a look here, we have content, media. That's if I want to upload like photos, stuff like that. I haven't really played too much with that feature in the past. Okay, and then here we see different types of content. Okay, so there's different types of content type. Think of content type as like what's referred to as a data model. Okay, so generally when you're building an app, you have different data models. Like users, that's one type of data. So you have to have a list of users. Now you have to have a list of each user's posts. So the posts would be a content type. So the idea is like each type of data that you need to track for your application. Okay, so I'm going to say add entry, uh, all content types. Now I want to create a custom content type. Where do I do that? So let's see here. It's again been a while. Skip onboarding. Yeah, skip all that. By choosing to skip the editor onboarding experience, you'll be removing the blank demo space. The space and all its contents will be removed. This action cannot be done. To confirm, enter the name of the space in the following list. Blank. Okay, so I just really want to start with a blank space. Truly blank space. Okay, so I think now I'm in a truly... Yep, there we go. So here we are in a completely blank space. Okay, so I'm going to design your content model. So again, the idea is we're going to create our different types of data. Okay, so create a new content type. I'm going to keep it real simple. What if I'm building like a to-do app? Okay, so I might have a content type called a to-do. Okay, it's basically a, to-dos in a to-do list. Okay, this is the description. Okay, awesome. And then what I have to do is I have to design this to-do type. So if you're using JavaScript, which you will generally probably use JavaScript than just front end, think of it as like what one single object should look like. So one single to-do object, okay, should have an ID. Okay, so because we want to identify these things. So I'm going to say, hey, name ID, okay, integer, that works. Okay, and then here we can see like field settings, enable localization, all the contents can be translated in English, required field, yeah, only accept default value. Setting allows you to set a default value. I'm going to leave it that as is. Required field, you won't be able to publish an entry. This field is empty. Unique field. And although I do think that Contentful, these things will automatically already have an ID to begin with, so I don't think I do need this. But what I do need is like, let's say like the text, like what is the to-do, okay, the description or the item, or let's just say the text. Okay, it's short text. To-dos usually aren't very long. Okay, add and configure. And I'll leave it at that. I could make it required. I could make it unique. So for example, they had to give like every to-do a unique name, but we'll keep it simple. And then we're gonna have a checkbox because you should know if the to-do is complete or not. So that'd be a Boolean, right? On or off. Okay, so on or off. So we'll say, hey, it's is it completed? Cool. Okay, and then I hit confirm. And then I can save, and now I've created my to-do content type. Okay. Cool. Save. Yeah, I think that's saved. So now I have a content model. Okay, so I have one content model, which is to-do, and then, if I wanted to, I could create one that's like user, to track my users, blog, if I want to have like users have their own blogs, you can create the content types that you want. Now, if I want to add a individual to-do, I would go to, so there's my content models, like the types of content, then there's content, which is the actual like item. So I can go here, add entry, and then I can say, hey, I am adding, let me choose what kind of thing I'm adding. Well, it's assuming a to-do. So you can see I'm adding a to-do, and it goes automatically to to-do because there's nothing else for me to make. I only have one content model. So I can enter the text, and I can mark it whether it's been completed or not. So I can say, hey, eat breakfast. No, I have not done that yet. And then I can publish that to-do. Cool. And then I can do another one. Eat lunch. Awesome. So this content is now published. So theoretically, I would love to be able to pull this data into my front end. And the cool thing is, like, I don't have to make the data here. Okay, I could make the data here. I could also, through the API, I could set it up where users fill out forms on the website and they can submit it, and we create items. All of this stuff would be in the documentation. So you see here it says docs. I'm just going to focus on how to pull in the data because, again, this is just an introduction just to show you like how useful Headless CMSs are. Okay, so basically there's different types of APIs. There's content delivery, so that's going to be dealing with like how do you pull the data into your website. There's content management, which is like if you want people to be able to like if you were creating like an admin dashboard for people to like be able to add items, delete items, things like that. And then I haven't really played with the content preview API, but essentially think about it this way: is like if I need to read the data, if I want to create, update, or delete data, that's going to be the content management API. Okay, so I'm going to head over to the content delivery API. Okay, and this is going to give us the details that we need to figure out how to construct our API URL. So it says, okay, this is my base URL right over here. So, okay, I'm going to copy that into a separate tab. Because always the first thing when you're trying to figure out how to use an API is to figure out, hey, what URL am I making a request to? So I'm going to start off with the base URL. Now I need to figure out what's the endpoint. So like, okay, this is the URL for their API, but what is the rest of the URL for the specific thing I'm asking for? Okay, well, here's like a menu, so I can use this to kind of help me figure out exactly what I'm asking for. Okay, so spaces. I'm not really asking. I'm asking for. Am I not? Am I asking for a content type? I think I'm not. I think I'm asking for the specific entries. I think that's what makes sense to me. So I'm gonna click on entries, and let's see here what it says. Fields are custom defined by a user through a definition set. Okay, entries represent anything defined as a content type in a space. We have a link field that points to other entries or assets. Maybe not. Assets would be like pictures and stuff associated with the content. Yeah, I think it is entries. Okay. In the JSON response of a successful query, linked items are placed in the includes array when not no links in the delivery API. Okay, so I think this is just to get one item. This is to get all the items. So let's try this out. Get entries. Okay, so then what this does, it tells you what the endpoint looks like. So again, so this would be the rest of the URL that I need. So I'm going to copy that. And then I'm going to paste that here at the end of the base URL. Okay, so that's the URL, but you see there's certain things I need to kind of fill in. I need to fill in the space, which has to do with my project. Okay, the environment ID, and we're going to fill in all those details. And then there's going to be parameters. So here we can see details. Okay, and it's going to say system type, array, total, skip, items. Okay, so let's just try this out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to head back over here. I need to get these pieces of information: space ID, environment ID, access token. Okay, so I think that's going to be in my settings. Okay, so I'm going to head over to API keys. Okay, it's going to say, hey, I need to add an API key, so I'm going to add an API key. Okay. I'm going to just put today's date, so that's 12/02/23. That'll be the name of the API key, just because I'm going to delete it right afterwards. Okay, cool. Access tokens, query and get access tokens. Okay, so here's the space ID, because that was another thing I needed. So I'm going to copy that, the space ID. So that's going to go right here where it said space ID. So now we found that. I can replace that. Okay, and then I see here, there's my access token. So that should be probably the API token. So I'm going to copy that and paste that over here where it says access token. Okay. And then right now it says select the environments this API key should have access to, which right now you can actually create different like environments in the same way you can create different like branches in Git. Okay. Which I think that's what this is. So I think that's fine. Okay, so let's go to settings and let's go to environments. I don't know if it's the environment ID has like it's just master, or I think it's just master. So I think for the environment ID, I just put in the name of the environment. So it would just be master. Okay, so we're going to try out this URL, see if this gets us what we expect. Okay, so that looked pretty good. Okay, so let's see what we find in here. Okay, items, type array. So there's the to-do item. Okay, here we go. So content type to-do. Entry. Tags. So let's see if I go, hi, here, items. I open up items. And there's meta tag, sys, and fields. So essentially each of these represents one item. And the data of that item is here in fields. And the metadata tells you what type of item it is. So if I go here to sys, it'll tell me, see, it says right here that this content type is to do. Okay. So I know this is a to-do item. So theoretically, if I want to make sure I get all the to-dos, so now let's see if we can just make this sure that it makes sure that it gets only to-dos. So I only, because let's say I only want content of a particular type. So let's see if we can find some more documentation. But that works. So again, using the documentation, I was able to construct the URL I would need for, let's say, my code. So that's the URL I would make my API call to. Okay, and let's see here, get all entries of a space. Let's see what happens if it's to get a single entry. Environmental entry ID, alphanumeric ID of the entry to retrieve. Let's see here. And type, metadata tags. Yeah, that looks like it's just getting one thing. But I just want to see, like, hey, does this give me the ability to kind of specify a specific content model? Links, search parameters, content type. Here we go. Search parameters. Content type. So to search entries with a specific content type, which is what we'd like to do. Because I only want the to-dos. I don't want anything else. So in this case, we would add this parameter to a query string at the end of the URL. Okay, so let's try that out. So theoretically, what I would do is at the end of the URL, I would put a question mark, because that's how you start a query string. And according to the documentation, it says content type, and then you put the name of the content type. Okay, so that's... Oh, but I don't need another question mark because there's already a question mark over here. So you see, like, the query string's already started because that's how I provided my access token. So really, then I just need to add another key. So that would be an ampersand. That's how you separate the keys in the query string. So it would be add content. Was it content dash type? Content underscore type. Content underscore type, and I would just say equal to do. Okay, and so now it should still give me all the items in my that I have in my space, which is my project, but only the ones that have a content type of to do. So I know that each of these are I know that each of these items are to do, because again, these items are really big objects. And keep in mind, like the actual, like there's these 3 sections, and really the only thing I care about is what's in fields, because fields is where the actual data is. Okay. So now, okay, I'm like, okay, I'm going to see how this works. Okay, so now I could theoretically, let's say I go to like a VS Code. So let me go open up VS Code. Okay, so I got VS Code open. And what I want to do is I'm going to create like an HTML file. So we'll say like index.html. Put some boilerplate in there. And I'm just going to put a script tag so we can do some JavaScript in here. Okay. And basically the URL, so const URL equals, and I can just copy that URL from over here because I know that it works. Okay, and then I can do my fetch. So I can just say like fetch URL dot then res.json. Again, I'm going to assume you know how fetch works. This is not a intro to the fetch video, so if you don't know how fetch works, please watch my intro to fetch videos. Dot then data console.log data. And again, basically, when I console.log data, data should be this object. So when I go look, when I log data, that should be what I see. So now I'm going to open this up with live server. And again, if you're not seeing this, like how I can collapse it and stuff, it's because I have an extension in VS Code. I'm not in VS Code, in Chrome, to make looking at JSON prettier. There's a bunch of different extensions for making JSON much more attractive in your browser. So just look at like JSON Prettify or JSON Viewer or something like that. Okay, so here's that website. Let me go to DevTools so we can see that console log. I'm gonna click on console. And see, there it is. There's the object. And if I open up the object, that looks like, let's see, does that look like the object we have over here? Okay, yeah, right. So we see total, skip, limit items. See total, skip, limit items. And then if I open up the items array, we see there's one object in the array. Okay, and that object has those three areas: fields, metadata, sys. Okay, and then basically again the fields one has all the data. Okay, cool. And you see each one's going to have its kind of its own unique ID, but that's in part of the system details there. Okay, cool. So there's like the unique ID of this particular entry. Okay, cool. So now what I can do is I can go in there and I can say, okay, all I really want is this items array. So what I'll do is I'll say, we'll expand on this dot then a little bit. And I can say, hey, const items equals data.items. And then I can now loop over that list of items. So for let item of items. And then again, for each item, what I really care about is the fields. So I'll say, hey, so that'd basically be like window document. We'll create a variable called body. So it'll be const body equals document.body. Just to make that a little bit less typing. Body dot inner HTML equals, then we'll use backticks. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, hey, h1 h1, then we're going to use string interpolation. Again, string interpolation, I have a separate video where I go over that, not the purpose of this video. String interpolation of item dot fields dot text. And see, there's our eat lunch. Because again, the fields are the actual fields of our content model in that item. So basically that's the deal here. We just use the docs to be able to construct the URLs to access the data that we have here. Now, ways this could be used, like if you were like freelancing, is like, let's say you knew a local pizza place. Okay, you could create a content model for a menu item for their menu. Okay, and then what you do is you pull that into using the Contentful API. You pull that data in. You can create them a nice website. Okay, where they can display all their menu items, but they don't have to write code. They can just log into Contentful, create their menu items. All you have to do is create the website that consumes the API and displays their menu items. Okay, so this allows you to create a very easy to maintain website for your client, and then basically makes it where you're not having to constantly do every little update. And generally, most people are not going to be able to afford to pay you for every little update, so they're more likely to be your client in this situation. So hopefully this helps you understand. And again, there's lots of things you can do here. So if we were to look at some of the other parts of the API, so this is all about just getting the data. Okay, but if I go back to the main API here, we have the content management API. Okay, there's things for like being able to like create and read things. Okay, so you have to read the details here as far as like how you do it. This will probably be a little bit more complicated than just creating stuff. Okay, but typically, you post to create things, you put to update things, and you delete things. But you can do that. Okay, so again, you can have, depending on what your use case is. So again, in the pizza place example, you probably don't need to use this API because you don't want them manipulating the menu from the website. You probably just want your customer, the pizza place, to log in here, the Contentful, and manipulate the menu items, and then your website just consumes the API. But let's say you were to create a website with users, then you want users to be able to log in and create and delete things, but you don't want them to log into your Contentful account or have access to your Contentful space directly. So in that case, you might make use of this API to be able to put that functionality on your website. So just so you can see what's all here in the documentation. So again, reading docs, and again, Contentful is not the only headless CMS. There's plenty more. You can always read more about these by going to like jamstack.org because it's all part of the Jamstack movement. So you've head over here, you can click here where it says Headless CMS, and you can find a long, exhaustive list of all the headless CMSs. So my name is Alex Merced from AlexMercedCoder.dev. Have a great day and enjoy.